Tiffin's luxury flagship was supposed to be the dream coach. And instead, it's turning into a $700,000 disaster. We're talking warning lights on delivery day, dead cameras, failed plumbing, and an engine oil pressure scare on a coach that's basically brand new. But that's just the start. Inspectors pulled the walls apart and found a missing structural weld on a frame that should have been bulletproof, the factory's fix. Cut a square hole in the side, weld through it, and patch it like a cheap flip. Now the dealer wants 6 figures more to upgrade the owner out of the mess they built. So here's the real question. What is Tiffin going to do about this? And what does it mean for every owner watching the first 10 miles? The disaster began before the engine even warmed. The moment the RV rolled off the lot, warning lights started firing like a dashboard panic drill. The tire pressure system insisted a wheel was collapsing, even though every tire checked out. 5 miles later, the side camera modules blacked out. On a coach this size, losing the right side visibility is not a small hiccup. It is a safety failure, and it happened before the owners even made it to the highway on-ramp. Then came the first mechanical insult. The rear toilet refused to flush, flagged as full, and required a module replacement right there at delivery. 3 failures in the first 10 miles. This was supposed to be a top-tier luxury diesel, not an electrical experiment falling apart in real time. Those early faults do more than frustrate. They create a paper trail that follows the coach forever. Early electrical failures instantly reduce resale confidence because buyers assume the wiring tree was rushed or misrouted. That alone can cut thousands from future trade value. And once a coach begins generating repair orders from day one, downtime becomes unavoidable. Every delay is money evaporating. Payments continue even while the RV sits still, proving this disaster was financial from the first mile. And the deeper the trip went, the more the systems collapsed, exposing failures no new coach should ever show. Power, plumbing, and AC issues. By the first overnight stop, half the coach went dark. Only one side of the electrical system carried power, while the other acted like it had been unplugged at the factory. Ground fault resets brought some life back, but the win lasted only minutes. The plumbing failures hit next. 3 out of 5 faucets had reversed hot and cold feeds, turning showers into guesswork and sinks into hazards. Even the primary bathroom fixture delivered cold water only when turned to the hot direction. Problems like this are not cosmetic. They prove the assembly line missed entire verification steps. Then, the front air conditioning unit joined the breakdown parade. It blew air, but ignored temperature commands completely. The cause was unbelievable. The sensor had never been plugged in from the factory. That is not a rare defect. That is a skipped procedure, and it happened on a coach approaching $1 million in retail value. Every hour spent diagnosing these flaws was an hour the RV could not be used. Downtime compounds fast, especially with payments, insurance, and storage costs running in the background. And once a pattern of plumbing and power inconsistencies appears, confidence in the warranty fades. When warranty confidence fades, resale bids fall, because no one wants electrical and water issues buried behind finished walls. But the failures that followed were not just inconvenient, they were dangerous. If you want more reporting that cuts through the marketing and shows the real issues behind these high-dollar coaches, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And if you have your own experience with these rigs, share it so others can avoid surprises. Mechanical oversights. Mechanical breakdowns began stacking like a checklist of what should never happen on any motorhome, let alone a flagship diesel. The passenger side mirror mount was barely attached. Bolts meant to secure the entire assembly had either loosened or were never installed. At highway speed, wind pushed the mirror outward and left the driver guessing what was beside them. With the right side cameras already dead, visibility vanished completely. Then came the hydraulic disaster. At the first concrete pad, the leveling system struggled. Minutes later, hydraulic fluid pooled under the rear jack. The seal had blown, leaving the coach leaning and unsafe to level. That alone requires immediate service, but the worst still lay ahead. 5 out of 8 tire pressure sensors failed across the trip, creating a rolling stream of false alerts. A high-end RV depends on accurate tire data. When nearly every sensor fails, safety becomes guesswork. And each of these failures sits in the service record permanently. Safety-related breakdowns hit insurance rates and trade valuations harder than cosmetic defects. When insurers see repeated sensor faults and hydraulic failures, they treat the vehicle as higher risk. Higher risk means higher cost. Value drops the moment these issues appear. But the moment everything changed was when the engine itself signaled something was catastrophically wrong. The oil pressure event. After a full day of traveling through warning lights, electrical hiccups, and mechanical oversights, the RV delivered the worst message imaginable. Zero oil pressure. Stop engine. No diesel owner wants to see that alert, especially not on a coach with only a few thousand miles on the drivetrain. The owners pulled over, checked for leaks, found nothing, and restarted the engine. The warning returned immediately, and the gauge showed no pressure at all. Freightliner technicians later confirmed the cause: a bypass valve that failed to close, preventing the engine from building the oil pressure it needed to survive. This was not a minor mechanical defect. Running a diesel engine with zero oil pressure is a fast track to long-term damage. Bearings, liners, and critical moving parts depend on that oil film. Once disrupted, early wear becomes a ticking clock. The technician admitted the risk directly. The engine might last 1 year or 20,000 miles, or it might collapse sooner. That uncertainty is a 5-figure liability hanging over the owner indefinitely. And this was the moment the disaster shifted from inconvenience to crisis. An engine compromised this early changes everything about future cost, resale, and long-term confidence. And then, the inspection revealed something no RV at this price should ever leave the factory with: missing structural weld. The inspection began with what looked like a cosmetic flaw, but the closer the shop looked, the worse the truth became. The entire wall along the driver's side was bowed outward by roughly 1 1/2 to 2 full inches. That amount of distortion does not happen from heat, leveling angle, or travel vibration. It happens when the structure behind the wall is no longer holding the load it was designed to carry. After removing interior trim and using a scope to examine the joint, the team found something that should never appear on any motorhome, let alone a coach priced near $700,000. A critical weld along the upper corner of the frame was simply missing. Not cracked, not weakened, missing. A structural weld is the backbone of the frame, and without it, the wall begins to separate under its own weight. Financing companies scrutinize frame integrity, and any documented failure can disqualify a unit from certain loans entirely. The resale market is even harsher. A frame defect becomes a permanent black mark, following the RV regardless of how well it is repaired. Insurance eligibility can also change because some carriers refuse comprehensive coverage on a repaired structure. And once the frame issue appeared, the front of the coach revealed the next round of evidence: front cap failure. The front cap, often called the nose cone, is designed to fit tightly without stressing the fiberglass. On this coach, the entire front section was pulled inward, creating 2 large circular depressions in the fiberglass. At first glance, it looked like impact damage, but the technician quickly determined otherwise. The depression originated from the inside, not the outside, and the pressure pulling it inward came from the generator compartment. The adjustment for the generator cover had never been set correctly at the factory, and when the hydraulic arms pulled the panel in, it forced the fiberglass past its designed tolerance. Cracks began forming along the inner edges where stress was highest, and once fiberglass cracks, it never fully returns to its original strength. Replacing a front cap is not quick. The factory told the owner that ordering a new nose cone would take 5 to 6 weeks, followed by a week or more in the paint booth for color matching, blending, and clear coating. A coach stuck in the queue is a coach still depreciating. That timeline does not include transport, reassembly, or reinspection. For an RV of this size, every day in the shop represents more value lost and more frustration added. But the biggest shock came when the factory explained how they intended to fix the structural sidewall, the patch repair. When the owner first spoke with the factory, the plan sounded reasonable. They said they would remove the exterior wall panel, repair the missing weld, install a new panel, and repaint the entire side. That is the correct method. But that is not what happened. Instead, the factory cut a 2x2 square hole directly into the exterior panel, reached inside, welded the joint, and then patched the opening with a fiberglass repair. Cutting into a laminated sidewall on a luxury coach is not standard practice. It creates a repair area that will always expand and contract differently than the surrounding structure. Fiberglass patches can look smooth on delivery day, but as moisture, heat, vibration, and road flex begin to work on them. The edges can separate or show as visible print-through. When that happens, the wall begins to discolor or ripple. Repair specialists estimate that a patched structural panel on a high-end motorhome can reduce value by $40,000 to as much as $120,000 over the next resale cycle. That number is not theoretical. Buyers and dealers discount any RV that shows evidence of cutting, patching, or panel resurfacing, especially when the original cause was a missing factory weld. And the financial imbalance grew even clearer when the dealer made its proposal for a replacement coach, the $225,000 upgrade offer. After weeks of repairs, calls, and delays, the dealer finally made an offer. They would trade the damaged coach for a brand new model year. On paper, that sounded fair, but then the numbers arrived. The dealership wanted an additional $225,000 on top of the original purchase price to complete the swap. This was not a small difference between model years. This was a six-figure request tied directly to depreciation that had happened because the first coach was defective from day one. The financial logic behind the offer becomes clearer when viewed through industry behavior. Dealers protect margins first, even when a manufacturer error caused the problem. By pricing the replacement this high, the dealer shifted the full depreciation and repair burden onto the customer. The problem is that the customer had already paid full market value for a coach that arrived with electrical issues, plumbing errors, mechanical flaws, structural defects, and a major engine risk. Asking for an additional $225,000 essentially confirmed where the financial imbalance sat. It did not sit with the owner. It sat in the structure of the deal, and that is when the bigger pattern started to surface. Other real cases. Once the structural and mechanical issues surfaced on this particular coach, more reports began appearing from owners of the same model line. A previous Zephyr owner documented nearly identical plumbing problems. Their bathroom fixtures had reversed hot and cold lines, just like the issues found in the more recent case. That earlier owner also reported slippery shower surfaces and internal wiring errors discovered during a third-party inspection. These were not rumors or exaggerations. Photos, receipts, and repair invoices supported every claim. Owner groups added more examples. Multiple inspection reports noted misaligned slides, incomplete sealant around windows, loose interior panels, and improperly mounted components. None of these should appear on a coach positioned as a top-tier RV. Yet, similar patterns surfaced repeatedly. When the same defects appear across different units, those patterns stop being isolated incidents. They become production indicators. And when production indicators affect a specific model or series, the resale market reacts. Buyers who research history look for stability, not uncertainty. Recurring defects reduce confidence and lower demand, which in turn lowers the value of every unit tied to that line. And once the pattern became clear, the next question was why it happened in the first place. Why quality control slipped. Several factors inside the production pipeline help explain the decline in build consistency. After the company was acquired, output targets shifted. Factories that once focused on craftsmanship began operating under a faster production schedule. Rushing a luxury RV is risky. When teams are pressured to increase volume, steps that require careful time and alignment, such as wiring harness checks, plumbing feed verification, and weld inspections, can be overlooked. These are not cosmetic oversights. They directly affect performance, safety, and long-term durability. Supplier changes and part substitutions shifted tolerances. And without updated procedures, defects appeared. Staff turnover added more gaps, as experienced workers were replaced before newer teams fully understood older build cycles. This mix of speed, supply issues, and training gaps ripples through long-term depreciation. High-end Class A units depend on reputation to hold value. When confidence drops, depreciation accelerates by tens of thousands, affecting every owner, not just those facing defects. And when those defects do appear, understanding refund and legal pathways becomes essential. If you want to stay ahead of the market and avoid the mistakes costing owners thousands, subscribe before you leave. Every new update helps you make smarter decisions, spot the warning signs early, and keep your money out of the repair bay. Refund and legal pathways. When a motorhome experiences repeated failures or a major structural defect, refund options depend on state laws and federal protections. Most states use Lehman thresholds that define how many repair attempts or days out of service qualify a vehicle for replacement or refund consideration. While thresholds vary, the underlying principle is the same. If the RV cannot be repaired within a reasonable time or continues to fail systems that should function reliably, the manufacturer must take corrective action. The federal Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act requires manufacturers to honor written warranties and prevents them from escaping responsibility through fine print. Structural failures almost always trigger buyback discussions because they affect safety, longevity, and insurability. Strong documentation matters. Tracking every repair, saving communications, and recording downtime increases refund odds. These legal protections exist, but many owners underuse them. Applying them correctly ensures the financial burden does not fall on the person who purchased the coach. And with these protections in mind, the next question becomes how the broader market will shift in the coming weeks, the next 30 to 60 days. The next 30 to 60 days are critical for anyone watching pricing or planning their next move. Model year rollovers are approaching, and dealers holding aging inventory cannot afford to let high-value units sit much longer. Each week, a coach remains unsold on the lot adds cost pressure. Floor plan financing, which is the system dealers use to carry inventory, grows more expensive as interest accumulates. That pressure often forces dealerships to quietly discount units to move them before rollover deadlines. Interest rates shape the entire landscape. When they rise, monthly payments on large motorhomes jump, demand softens, and dealers quietly adjust prices, incentives, and trade values. These changes appear in waves tied to inventory cycles and financial deadlines. With hesitation growing after recent unit failures, pricing pressure increases. In the coming weeks, rollover timing and aging inventory will push select models into deeper discounts. Waiting for these windows helps avoid early year depreciation others absorb. And as those shifts begin, the larger picture of the market becomes impossible to ignore. Why this one case shifts the entire market. A single defective coach does not move a market on its own, but a documented pattern does. This case exposed issues that dealers had already been noticing quietly. Aging luxury inventory, sitting longer on lots, slower turnover in high-end Class A diesel units, and a noticeable rise in warranty service requests tied to newer model years. Across several dealer networks, service bulletins have highlighted electrical inconsistencies, slide alignment problems, and component failures that appear more frequently than before. When a premium manufacturer shows repeated signs of strain, confidence softens, and that softness spreads to the entire segment. The financial impact shows up fast. Rising warranty claims push manufacturers to simplify systems, use cheaper suppliers, or remove features to protect margins. These shifts raise long-term ownership costs because lower-grade components wear faster and depreciate harder. Resale markets respond with caution, lenders tighten terms, and a single high-profile failure quickly reshapes how the entire category is valued. And once the market shifts, dealerships move just as quickly to protect themselves. How dealers respond when a premium brand takes a hit. When a premium brand stumbles, dealers adjust their tactics almost immediately. Some begin moving high-end inventory through wholesale channels rather than waiting for retail buyers, especially when units show early defects or have been sitting through multiple seasons. Wholesale adjustments quietly reduce invoice values without appearing on public listings. Other dealers take a different approach by offering what are often called silent discounts. These small price drops do not show up on big banners or online ads, but they appear in person when a salesperson knows a coach is aging and needs to move. Dealers often shift to aggressive warranty upsells when confidence in a model line drops. These plans add thousands and carry higher margins than the RV itself, protecting the dealer while shifting risk to the shopper. Financing tactics also change, offering lower monthly payments through longer terms that favor the dealer. These moves reflect behavioral shifts when a brand's stability weakens, and the tension grows even more when a refund becomes possible, because that is where manufacturers draw the financial line. The real reason. Manufacturers resist buybacks. Manufacturers rarely discuss the cost of buybacks, but internal figures tell the story. A single refund on a luxury diesel coach can exceed $200,000 once transport, repairs, title processing, and lost resale margin are factored in. Even larger companies struggle to absorb those numbers. Warranty reserves across several major brands are already under strain due to rising repair costs and supplier price increases. When a factory has to buy back a coach, the money comes directly out of those reserves. Too many buybacks in one quarter can jeopardize scheduled production cycles or force cost adjustments in upcoming model years. Public financial data shows margins on high-end diesel lines shrinking as labor, parts, and emissions costs rise. A single buyback sets a precedent, so manufacturers resist, because multiple refunds multiply losses. That pressure slows communication and stretches repairs, making solutions less direct. The issue is economic, not mechanical, which explains why refund paths stay difficult despite clear evidence. And while manufacturers navigate those pressures, the broader market is heading into a time window that changes prices once again. The window of opportunity. The next 30 to 60 days open a strategic window that appears only a few times each year. Model year rollover is approaching, and dealerships holding high-value inventory cannot afford to keep diesel pushers aging on the lot. Every week adds financing cost through floor plan interest, which climbs steadily as units remain unsold. Dealers also face freight surcharges that will adjust at the end of the quarter, increasing the cost of incoming shipments. When those surcharges rise, dealers gain even more incentive to discount existing stock before updated freight charges hit new arrivals. Aging inventory deadlines add pressure as lenders and manufacturers limit how long a unit can sit before extra fees hit. As those dates approach, discounts appear quietly on slower-moving trims instead of across the board. Watching listings closely matters because the price drops are subtle, not advertised. When rollover timing, freight adjustments, and dealer deadlines collide, opportunities emerge that never show up mid-season. Understanding these pressure points helps avoid overpaying and reveals where the market is heading next. So now you've seen how a luxury coach can turn into a rolling nightmare. What do you think Tiffin should do next? Buy back, recall, or is this just the new normal? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this opened your eyes, hit like and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the